Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Hsieh, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the
Every
field.
product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son, major retailers.
Yeah.
Check. Is it? We think this is cool. Is this cool?
The thing with Amazon is just it become more and more complicated over the years. Yeah, maybe you can also consider to create more online resources.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Hi, welcome back to Toy Business Unboxed. This is another episode. I'm your host, Jason Hsieh. And today I'm thrilled to have Kelly, an inspiring educator and entrepreneur dedicated to reimagining test prep for younger students. And she also owns a reward-winning product called Watermelon Mask, which is designed to help kids age 9 to 13 to feel calmer and more confident as they prepare for the private school administration exam. And thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Kelly.
Thank you for having me. And I love that intro music. It was sort of connecting me with my inner 80s and 90s, music fan.
Okay. Yeah, this is version 1. We're working on the second
I like
version,
it.
actually.
No, I like it.
So, yeah. So can you tell the audience and our listener a little bit about your background and what inspired you to focusing on helping younger students with test prep?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for having me, Jason. So I have been an educator for my entire career. This is chapter 2 of the career. So firstly, I was a regular classroom teacher for middle school for the first 12 years of my career. And then I moved to London in 2011. And that's where I pivoted into specializing in test prep. So I specialize in private school admissions exams for the younger set of students. So most people, when they think about test prep, they think about SAT, ACT, maybe GRE. These are, very popular, very big exams.
Yes.
But the exams that I work with are similar standardized exams, but for younger students. So my students are applying to middle schools and high schools at the competitive level. So I started specializing in that in 2011. And then I've been doing that ever since. And then last year, I just launched my first product, which, we'll talk about. And that's where we are.
I see. Thank you for sharing that. So what challenge do you typically see for kids in that age group when they are trying to prepare for the test? I can imagine maybe anxiety is one of them.
Absolutely.
Can you share some of the challenges?
Yes. So, I don't think standardized tests falls on anyone's list of things they like doing. Maybe there's a few people,
obviously,
but for the most part, most people put standardized tests on the not like list.
Yes.
So, and then especially as you get even younger, students 9, 10, 11, they're developmentally so very different from high school students who are preparing for college admissions exams. So they're still kids, really, and this is a lot of pressure and a lot of, as you say, a lot of anxiety, and it comes at a time where they're still trying to figure out sort of who they are academically. They're trying to figure out their strengths. They're trying to figure out their weaknesses. They're trying to figure out, am I as smart as my big brother? Am I as smart as my big sister? Where do I fall in class? And so these exams come at a really, potentially harmful time for them because it can really sort of affect their identity and their confidence as a student. And so this is why it is my total honor and privilege to dedicate myself to this, because I want to make the experience as painless as possible and also empowering and actually give them something to think, wait, I can do this. So that's why I'm committed to it.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. And actually, I can relate to that quite a bit because I'm from Asia. I'm from Taiwan, and my wife's from Japan. In Asian country, every single thing is a test.
Yes.
In every single middle school, high school is all tests. There's no such thing as free pass just because there's no free pass to high school. Every single high school, you need to take a test. My personal experience when I was 15, I took the entry-level exam for the high school. I got, because I was living back in Taiwan back then, I think I got into, it's called Songshan High School, which is ranked number 9 in the entire school system in, I think, Taipei, where I was from. However, it wasn't good enough for my parent. As an Asian parent, it's either you are in top 3 or you are a failure.
Mhm.
So I got sent overseas to study abroad in Canada. That's my
Mhm.
childhood. So I actually have quite a bit of trauma around like me being a failure as a student. And I
Yeah.
feel like my parent, I mean, I don't know if I can share that openly, I guess, on the podcast, is I feel like I got abandoned because I
Yeah.
wasn't good enough on the test. And
Exactly.
that was the only way for me to validate myself as a kid.
Mhm.
And I, because I only got into number 9 instead of top 3, and I feel like a lot of my confidence and self-esteem um was almost destroyed because I didn't do a very good job on tests. That, and unfortunately, that is so common in Asia. That's just so common. It's
Mhm.
almost heartbroken for me to see that and also experience that myself firsthand as a kid back then. I mean, that was many
Yeah.
years ago, but I still have like a little bit of trauma. Maybe I need to do some more therapy about it.
Of course. No, I mean, and that's very, I mean, this is,
So,
as you say, it's very common in Asia, but I mean, it's a very common reaction. It's very natural. And, and that's part of why I want to, try as much as I can to soften the experience because I can't change the larger system. The system exists
yeah,
as it is.
yeah,
And as we know, as adults, you can look back on those experiences and that really that test didn't mean all that much. Like, look, you've
yeah.
grown up
But
to be a very
as a kid, that's
successful,
all you have.
you
That's your
know,
entire like being almost. So
exactly. It's hard
yeah,
to see beyond that and know that you're going to be a successful, business person or entrepreneur or whatever you're going to be. There's such a bright light and such a bright future ahead of, all of my students, no matter how they're going to do on this exam.
yeah. But as a
But at the
student, it's hard to
moment,
see beyond that. Yeah, really
yes.
hard to see beyond that. It's either
Mhm.
like you pass and you are a success, or you are the freaking failure in
Yep.
your life. So
Yes.
yeah, it's really black and white almost.
Yes.
So
Yes. Thank you for
yeah.
sharing that story.
No problem. And I want to ask about, because you also experience living and working in London, which I believe is have a very different educational, system compared to US. So can you also share with the audience like your experience and like what is your experience comparing the UK education system versus the US?
Yes. So I was working at the American school in London when I was there for the first year.
Yeah.
And so my experience in London was still in the American system. However, I had students coming from the British system and I was working with them one-on-one.
Okay.
And, I could see that the systems are very different.
Oh, how so? Yeah.
And, as someone who is educated in the American system and someone who
Yeah.
has been a teacher in the American system,
Okay.
when you go to another country that has the same language, you can't imagine how many differences there will be.
Yeah.
I think when you go to a country that seems very different language, different culture, sometimes the differences seem very obvious at the outset. But
Yes.
for England and the US, it would seem like, we're pretty similar.
I was
But
also, yeah, no.
yeah, the differences, honestly, I was there for 10 years and I
Yes.
was still being blown away by all the differences, even on a weekly basis, there were still things that were surprising me like, wow, we are
Okay.
so different.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, and of course, this is just from my perspective. So, it could be not totally right, but I feel like the British system is actually a lot more test focused than the American.
Oh, really? Okay, I
So
didn't know
more
that.
similar to the Asian system. I mean, it's a more traditional kind of system. I mean,
Oh.
that's just sort of culturally that tracks.
So I have a question to ask you on that. So
Yeah.
it's very common in Asia.
Mm,
Every single kid go to cram school after regular school.
mm,
In my
mm, mm.
experience, when I was in middle school, I'll go to school from 9 to 5. Then from 6 to 10, well, 6 to 9, I go to a second cram school to study for the test every single day and on the weekend too. That's
Mhm.
a norm in Asia. How
Yes.
about in UK?
No, not to that extent. I
Okay.
feel
Sorry.
like as you,
Yeah.
maybe as you move further east in the globe, it gets more intense, ending with Asia.
Yeah, Asia is very intense, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the UK is somewhere in the middle of those 2 points between us and Asia.
Okay.
But but students are very there's this emphasis on taking on a lot of information, memorizing a lot of content and being responsible and being held accountable for large amounts of content. Whereas from my perspective, as an American, having been in the American system for most of my career, it does feel like we have less of an emphasis on just a bunch of content and more of an emphasis on thinking and innovating, honestly. Like that's just sort of the American ethos. Like that's kind of how we're built as a country. We're always trying to change things and always looking ahead and always innovating, and so that comes through in our education system as well. Whereas there's a lot of tradition that's very valued and respected and revered in the British culture, and that comes through in the education system as well.
Okay.
So I feel like there is a little bit more of a forgiveness for like for a whole student in the U.S. system. Obviously this is going to change from place to place, from state to state, school to school, private, public. I mean, we have so many variations. But at least in the schools that I've taught in, and in the schools that I mostly have experience with, it's more the kind of thing where, okay, if the student isn't exactly meeting the standards or meeting the needs or meeting the expectations, there's still room for that student to have success, because there are other ways that we can find success and meet the student where he or she is.
One of the examples I can think of is like one thing we don't have in Asia, like that we have here in US, is like the community college system, which you can go 2 years, then transfer back to a regular university. When I first heard of that, I was like, whoa, that's pretty impressive, actually, to almost give people a second chance that couldn't get into the university through the regular SAT or the regular administration system, a second chance to go to a community college, 2 years, study, then transfer to the regular college. That's not even an option in Asia.
Yes, and also it gives people an option to figure out what they want to do, because honestly, this is so early in our lives to make a decision about what we're going to do, what we're going to study.
Agreed.
That's interesting.
Is that also a system in UK like that?
No, not that I know of, but I don't know for sure, because the students that I was working with, tend to be younger, so I don't quite follow them all the way up to that point in their education. But I don't think so, because it seems like they're choosing their specializations even earlier than we do in the American system.
Oh, really? Whoa, okay.
So
I see. So
all very interesting.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And I want to transition the next part of the interview to talk a little bit about the product that you created. And I know your product emphasized on creativity and design, and also trying to be educational and help the kids with the test prep that you're focusing on. And I think you'll have the product with you too. Will you mind sharing your product and kind of go through your design process?
So this is Watermelon Math, which just it's a deck of flashcards, and most math flashcards deal with math facts. This is math vocabulary. So the cards have been designed with design in mind, with colors and fonts, and I've been very thoughtful about those choices, because this is sort of how I got into the toy industry, the toy space, because, when product designers are creating toys, obviously they're thinking about all the aesthetics, right? Because a kid's going to play with a toy when it's appealing for various reasons, when it's nice to look at, when it's nice to touch, maybe it will have sounds or whatever. My flashcards don't, but, it has to appeal to the senses. And that's what I wanted to do with the product. I wanted it to appeal to the senses, because when you are connecting what you're studying with a pleasant experience, you're more likely to remember what you're studying. When you're connecting while you're studying with some sort of senses, so when you're seeing color, when you're when you're looking at something and you're feeling a little bit of emotion because it's cheerful, you're more likely to remember things. So that's what I did. I just designed, these math vocabulary cards with those ideas in mind.
Do you consider to add like maybe a QR code component to each card so people can scan it and watch a YouTube video that kind of explain each of the concept in depth?
That would be a great idea. That would take a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
work.
Sure. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but
Maybe
I
that's on the
think
roadmap.
it's just making I guess the user experience even more interactive and more
Yes.
like playful because
Yes.
the last thing you can think of is playful when you're studying for a test. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. I have in my second print run, I do have a QR code coming up for the deck just to give some more ideas for ways to use the deck.
oh yeah, that's
Um,
great too.
but
Yeah.
maybe in round 3, there'll be some individual QR codes with some interactive.
And I always have crazy ideas. So another crazy idea
Love
I
it.
have is, have you ever considered to turn it into a trivia game, which you can battle with your friend? It's like
Mm,
trivia games. Like, this is
yeah.
question one, and everyone need to, race to answer the questions, and they get points. So it's like a competitive flashcard game that's educational and designed for test prep. So
I love that. I mean, that would just be leveraging, the power of connection, and that would be very motivating for kids as well. No, that's a great idea.
because for my experience, when I study, the best is when I study with my friend.
Of
And I
course.
test with my friends. Oh, do you know this? I know this. Is almost like a game, like a competition.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very competitive. Everything I do is
Mhm.
all about like I need to win and I want to win. And if you can
Mhm.
make the game like a competition, I mean, people like myself, I'll really enjoy that and make the whole test preparation process more like a game instead of
Yes.
studying for a test. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, especially as you say, like leveraging those social components, especially for this age group. Adolescents, as you know, their social needs are very first and foremost. So that's a great way to leverage that.
Yeah, and you say
Mhm.
can you explain this test that this car is specializing in? Because before I met you, I never heard of that test. So
Yes.
yeah.
Well, that's very normal. So there are private middle schools and high schools in the US, obviously, and there are loads of them, but some of them are more competitive than others. And so it's really just sort of this most competitive level of middle and high schools that require a particular exam
Okay.
called the ISEE, which stands for the
ISE.
Independent School Entrance Exam.
Okay.
And that exam is typically the schools can determine where at what age level they require it, but for the most part, it's for kids applying to grade 5th and above.
Oh,
So,
middle school. Middle
yeah,
school? Middle school. Okay.
yeah, upper elementary. I mean, 5th grade is sometimes upper elementary in some schools, sometimes middle school in other
Yeah.
schools. So kids applying to 5th grade are currently in 4th grade. So they're 9,
Yeah.
and they're working to this exam.
What is this test consists of besides
Mhm.
math?
Yeah, so there's a verbal reasoning section, and there's
Oh,
a
whoa.
a reading comprehension section, an essay, and then there's 2 math sections.
Oh, whoa, pretty
Um,
intense. Okay. Yeah.
it's pretty intense. It's like a 2.5 hour exam.
Oh,
So
whoa.
yeah,
Okay.
it is not a little
It's
game.
pretty much almost like a mini SAT.
It is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. And
Yep.
is the test multiple choice or is
It's
it?
multiple choice.
Do
Yeah.
you
All
also
this.
need to write the essay out as well?
There's an essay, and it's a 30-minute essay at the end of the multiple choice portions. And so, yeah, hopefully down the line, I'll have some materials for that as well, because there's not a lot of resources
Yeah, yeah.
because the exam is so specific, and
Specific.
there's
Okay.
not nearly as many students across the country doing this versus the SAT or the
SAT.
ACT. There
Yes.
just isn't the breadth of materials for it.
Material. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, that's why it's something I want to
Yeah,
start
you
working
should definitely start a YouTube channel just talk about that.
Yeah.
That'll be
I
great.
I need to have 5 versions of me, and I think I need to live till maybe, I don't know, age 120 at least, Jason.
No, you just need to hire some virtual assistant.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah. So then I want to transition to the design process of
Mhm.
the flashcard. Well,
Yes.
I guess the games that you design. How do you
Yeah.
come up with the design and can you walk us through it?
Yeah, well, for a long time, I sort of had the ideas in my head. I have zero talent when it comes to drawing, or when it
Same
comes
here.
to, yeah, absolutely none, absolutely none. My brain is very visual, and I can see the things, but I have no talent to communicate it from my brain to the paper.
I
And
can relate to
so
that because every time I draw a cat and my daughter couldn't recognize it's a cat. That's how bad I am in
yes.
drawing. So
Yeah, exactly. I guess we just can't be good at everything.
yeah.
So for a couple of years, I was thinking about it, like, how am I even going to pull this off? Where do I even start? As entrepreneurs, we see these big projects and we think, I don't even know where to start.
Yes.
And so I decided finally to just start looking on LinkedIn and start adding a bunch of people on LinkedIn in various sort of industries, like design people,
Oh, interesting.
illustrators,
Okay.
just all kinds of things that had to do with the toy industry and had to do with game production. I just
Yeah.
started adding a bunch of people on LinkedIn just
Yeah.
so I could start learning about it, so I could see what they were
Okay.
posting. And you know how it is, like one thing just leads to another and another.
Sure.
So I was adding illustrators, and then finally I just reached out to a couple, and I reached out to a few illustrators and said, oh, I have this small project in mind. And one of the illustrators, she and I talked, and it seemed like a good fit, and I've stuck with her since the beginning. She has been amazing.
Nice.
Her name is Juliana, and she just she is that person who can take the ideas from my head to the paper.
Yeah.
And so the design process has been very collaborative. I explained to her a lot about what I'm hoping to see, and
Yes.
she gives me her draft, and we tweak it. We go back and forth. I also have a designer, so she was the illustrator,
Okay.
and she did the illustrations on the cards.
Oh, okay.
She
Yeah.
also did the back, so we talked through like the kind of text we were going to use and the colors, because all of that, like I say, is intentional, so we can help
Yes.
students remember certain things.
Sure.
But then I also had a designer, a graphic designer, help me with the package design.
I love your packaging. Yeah, I need to learn from your packaging. Our packaging for our toys sucks. Don't tell anyone.
I mean, this is the
Yeah.
thing. Like, I didn't realize, how much time and how much effort this was going to take. And this, honestly, thank you so much for that compliment, Jason. This is
Yeah.
the product of so much work, because this is actually box number 3.
Oh, whoa! It's already
Um,
third version. Whoa.
This is the
Okay.
third version of the box. So
Whoa. Okay.
the first version of the box, it was because I was trying to I was trying to launch quickly. I was trying to launch at like
Ah.
a good season for my business.
Sure. Sure.
And so the box initially was a little bit of an afterthought. I had the product ready to go.
Yep.
And the box was kind of like something we just sort of threw together, and it didn't have a lot of intentionality behind it.
Yeah.
And
Same
I
as
had a
mine.
little fortuitous event. So basically, I sent them off to print, and my printer is in the UK, and they're marvelous. They're fabulous. I
Oh,
love
it's in
everything
UK.
about
I
it.
saw it was manufactured in China. I didn't know it's
No, I'm
manufactured in UK.
manufacturing in the UK.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
And so I love everything about my printer. They're doing a fabulous job. But the first run
Yeah.
with box number 1
Yep.
had a fault with the glue.
Oh
And
no.
so it was the box actually was a totally different box. This is as you can see, this is a 2-part box. If you know
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
box styles, the
Yes.
first box was a tuck box.
Okay.
Where it has the little like a deck of cards. You know how it has a top that sort of folds into
Oh,
itself.
yeah. Kind of like the poker deck. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, like a
Yeah.
poker deck. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that
Yes.
the name for that kind of box is a tuck box.
Talk box.
So a
Okay.
tuck box is a less expensive box than a 2-part box.
Why
Which,
do you
this
switch the
is
box then?
well, because the tuck box, the first box, which was a tuck box, it had a glue issue. So I didn't necessarily have to switch the structure of the box, but because the boxes fell apart because there was a glue failure,
Oh, selling
I had to
apart.
redo. I couldn't sell my first
Oh
run
man.
of product.
Okay.
But I didn't have time at that point in my year, because this is one part of my business. So I didn't have time to redo the entire box at that time. So I had to sort of just pause the entire product. And then when I paused it, I thought, you know what? Actually, the box is kind of lame anyway. It is lame.
Okay.
You
It's a
know,
good time to redesign it. Sure.
because I realized that I was very excited about the product.
Yeah.
And when I wanted to like share it with friends and show it on social media, I realized I really wasn't excited about the box. I was actually kind of embarrassed about the box. So then I took the time to redo the structure. I mean, honestly, I hired a box engineer, didn't know that was a thing. hired a box engineer. We went through all different box structures, and we landed on this 2-part box, and I love the 2-part box. And then I hired a designer, to take me through different versions of the graphic design. So basically, it was a team of people coming around for this box because we had the structure of the box, for one person, and the design of the box for another person. And then, of course, Juliana is my illustrator, so she did the illustration. So a lot of work went into this box.
I know. I can tell. I can tell. It's very unique, very eye-catching, and I like the graphic and the icon, the award, and everything. Yeah.
Thank you.
I will actually, and that's actually a case study I want to do with my team. We also have an in-house graphic designer, but our packaging is nowhere as good as yours. So.
Thank you. No, it's been a labor of love, and I've learned a lot about it. And now I'm just obsessed. I'm always looking at boxes.
That's funny. No, that's really funny. Yeah. And actually, that's a good transition to my next question, because especially for the retail store where the packaging is critical for first impression, when you design the box, what are some of the major elements that you included in your design?
Yeah, good question. So, actually, I'm sure you're aware of Ajel Wade, the toy coach.
Yes,
So
yes.
I did her course with Toy Creators Academy. I did her course a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
For this purpose, because I knew nothing about product design.
Okay. Oh, for product design. Okay.
And one of the things that she had recommended to me, because in my initial box design, I had. Well, actually, Watermelon Math wasn't the initial name anyway. The initial name was.
Oh, okay.
The initial name was Memorable Math, which is not that memorable.
Okay. Yeah, I like the Watermelon Math better, to be honest.
So initially, the box was very lame, and it had a very lame name and a very lame design. But I also had the name lower on the box, and Ajel had given me the guidance to make sure that the name was higher on the box because
so
for shelf placement.
Yes.
Yeah. There's still some debate about what to do with these award labels, because actually Ajel had a podcast episode about the tension between whether you should post your award seals on the box, because they
Why not?
you want to display them, of course, but then they also are somewhat interrupting the design. So I don't know that I've made the right choice with my award seals, but obviously I've got them, so I'm proud to display them. But let's see, what other.
It's a manufacturer. I would love to use it because I pay so much money for it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's just so much information that you want to have on the cover.
On it. Yeah.
So there's a lot to sort of juggle, because you've got your logo. Obviously, I've got my logo here.
And I noticed it's very shiny. Is it different material around the the seal?
Oh, well, at the moment, because this is just my first print run, when I printed the box, I hadn't yet secured the awards. And so the awards are stickers at the moment.
Oh, it's not part of the printing. Okay.
It's not part of the actual package.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the moment, I have literally put each individual sticker on all of my boxes.
Oh, whoa, that's a lot of work. Oh my God. Okay, that's a lot of work. Yeah.
One at a time. I had this award first. I had one award first, and then the second, and then the third. So, the next print run will have the awards just printed on here, so they won't be shiny. Okay. It's really nice to have them shiny. So it would be amazing.
Catchy. It's actually very catchy. That's why I was going to ask you, how do you design it to be shining as part of the packaging design itself? So.
It's an interesting question. I don't know that it would be possible to get it that shiny in the print run itself.
There might be a way. You just need to pay more for the packaging.
It obviously would be. Yeah, it would obviously be expensive to do that.
So
but I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. And also, beside the product, you also have another business. Can you tell the listener a little bit about your tutoring business?
Yeah, so the main business is my service business, and it's me just working one-on-one with students, doing the test prep, as we mentioned. So that has been my business for over a decade. And so this
Right.
product business is now, just a part of my business and a smaller part of my business, to be honest. But
Sure.
the service business is just one-on-one working with students. I also I do the diagnostics. So when I first meet with a student, I see where they are relative to the test, and then I come up with a program that's going to work for them.
Okay.
And so that is, the 80 to 90% of my time, of the business is that. And then I get to spend, 10 to 20% of my time creating products,
Do
marketing,
you also
distributing,
send
sales.
the card to all your students so they can use it while you're doing tutoring with them?
Yes. So
Okay.
if they are at the right level for the product, so some of my
Oh,
students are a little bit older. So I would say
I see.
maybe a third of my students are taking the exam. That's the level for this particular
Oh, got it,
product.
got it, got it, got it.
So yeah, if they're at that level, certainly they have it, and it's very fun for me to use that in my
Yeah,
lessons with
yeah,
kids.
for sure. Yeah,
And then sometimes I'll tell them
yeah.
that I created it, and usually they're very surprised because they don't see me as someone who could create something, because it looks professional. It doesn't look like just some random person on the other side of the camera made it in their spare time.
Yeah.
So often it's quite cute. My kids are like, "What? You made this?"
Yeah, the reaction is really cool. Can you also share some of the success story or feedback that you got from student or parent who have used the watermelon mask so far?
Yeah, so it's early days. I have only just launched a little over 6 months ago. So
Okay.
it's early days. But it's, I can see when my students use it, they like I said, everything was very intentional. So I was intentional about the texture of the cards, so they even just feel nice in your hands.
Okay.
They're very friendly and cheerful. And so this is an item that my students don't feel stressed about.
Yeah.
And that's really just my intention. So they enjoy engaging with them. And sometimes when I'm on a call with a kid, I'll say, okay, find the mean, median, and mode cards in your deck, and then they'll go searching for those and they'll find them. And then sometimes they're like still going through the deck. I'm like, no, come back to me. Like, I've like lost them because they're just like, oh, I know this one. Oh, what's this? So it's very, it's encouraging for me to see that sometimes they want to engage with them more than what I'm asking them, because that, feels like a mode of success.
I see.
And then I have had teachers use them in their classrooms. So I had, it's like I say, teachers are starting to sort of trickle in with their experiences. I had one teacher play the game of Taboo. You know the game Taboo?
No, what's the rule?
Oh, so the game of Taboo is where you have to get your partner to say a word, but there's certain words you can't say in order to get them to say it. So like, say, for example, I'm trying to get you to say birthday, but I can't say cake or candles or party. There's like certain words that you would say when trying to tell someone the word birthday. And so there's certain words you cannot say, and those are the taboo words.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I had a teacher play the game of Taboo using my cards with math vocabulary. So she was trying to get her students, to say the vocabulary to each other without using like very obvious words.
Yeah. Okay. That make it more fun. Yeah. Going back to making it fun. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I've just, some other tutors and teachers have sent me pictures of them using them in lessons. So it's a delight to see that.
For sure. I want to transition in the final part of our interview today to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, because I know you're very, very active on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be more active. I try to post about one post a day with videos or other content, but can you also share about your experience utilizing LinkedIn to not only build your professional network, but also promote your product as well?
Thank you. Well, you're doing better than I am, Jason, because I don't post every single day. But I
try
am on
to.
there. I am on there every day. Honestly, for me, LinkedIn has just been an absolute joy. And like I had sort of said earlier, when I was kind of dipping my toes into the toy industry initially, because I'm an educator, so I don't have any experience in the toy industry.
Yes.
So this is how I started learning about the toy industry. Was I just like, as I said, I just started
Okay.
adding people, adding designers, adding illustrators,
Yeah.
adding
I think that's also how we met. We met on LinkedIn too.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was adding children's authors, marketing people, just adding all sorts of people so I could
I
learn the
see.
entire, industry around developing and marketing a product.
That's
And
smart.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I suppose I do post on LinkedIn, and I feel like I have a community, which is wonderful. And so that's motivating to me because I feel like, there's people that I've been following for a while, and I'm seeing their updates and their progress and the things that they've got going on, and I'm genuinely excited to, watch you and everyone else and their successes. And I think there's people who are active on LinkedIn have that, mentality where we kind of come in and cheer each other on. And I feel like it's
Yeah.
more there than on other platforms. To me, it doesn't feel as
Yeah, and I think it's also focusing on like the business aspect instead
yeah.
of sharing random cat pictures or cat
Yes.
photos.
Yes. Yes.
So that helped. Like
Yes.
I just got back from Astra and I was posting every single day how while I was in Astra because it's just
Mm-hmm.
showing pictures, showing video with me and people's and just making a bigger or stronger connection with the people in the toy industry because
Yes.
almost everyone go to Astra. So
Yes.
it's a lot of people I know on LinkedIn. It's my first time meeting them in person. So
Exactly.
that really also helped by making the connection on LinkedIn first, then you meet them in person later. It's like,
Yes.
oh, okay, this is why. Okay, this is a story I want to share. There was one of the guests I had. His name is Phil. He worked with Ravensburger. He
Yeah.
was one of my guests. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize how tall he was until I met him in
Yes.
person. It's like, oh my God, you're giant. I feel like really, really short when I met him.
Yes.
So it's like you don't know that until you meet them in person because just even if we're meeting on camera right now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how tall you are. You look, I don't
Exactly.
know. I can guess, but
Exactly.
it's very different when you meet them in person. So that's also one thing I like about LinkedIn is to start getting to know the person before you
Yes.
meet them in person. So when you meet
Yes.
them in person, it's almost like you feel like you have known them for a while. So
Exactly. It's like, connecting with an old friend. Yeah, I really
yeah.
appreciate that too. And I didn't get to go to Astra. Maybe I will next year because I do
Good.
live
We'll
in
have a booth. So
it
swing by
looks
our
like
booth next year. Yes.
it looks like a great
Yeah.
event. But I
It
was
was.
following that on LinkedIn, and just like you and lots of other connections that I have on LinkedIn, just
Yes. Yeah.
watching all of your posts from Astra has been good for me because it's like, oh,
Oh,
okay,
you should definitely go.
I
It
didn't
was
get to
fun.
go, but I got to see, what it was like.
Yeah,
So
come the next year. You'll have a lot of fun. So
it looks like it was great. Yeah.
yeah, a
I
lot of
did
networking every single night. I was so exhausted after I got back home, but I was there for a week. And I also attended a certified play expert, which I highly recommend if you haven't taken that course yet.
I
So
looked at it, and I was just about to ask you if you attended that as well because
yes, I did. Yeah,
I
I
did look
did a
into that.
2 day. I did
Was it
a
a
two
one
day,
day or two?
2 day in
Mm-hmm.
person, 2 days. So me and my sister, which my sister is our marketing director in the
Yeah.
company. So me and my sister both attended. It was very. You talk about child development, talk about the power of play, talk about. I describe it as a college class without a beer. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I'm sure that was really good.
yeah,
It's on my list of things that I'd like to do. So
yeah.
hopefully, about how many people were in the? Just curious, how
I
many
think there was
participants?
about 30 or 40 of us. Yeah, it's a
Okay,
small
nice
class.
cohort.
And there's two instructors, and it's not just one way instruction, it's also interactive. We're doing
Mm-hmm.
like team discussions, exercise, and some interactive things, and brainstorm on what kind of toy will. It's also like scenario studies. Like, okay, this is a kid, this is what the problem is, this is what the parent want. What is a toy you'll recommend to the
Yep.
parent in that scenario? So those also like some scenario playing, which is pretty interesting for me as a manufacturer designing toys to kind of look at it from the other aspect. So yeah, and there's
Yes.
also not just manufacturer attending. There's also retailer that's also
Mm-hmm.
attending as well. So you also get to meet other like retail store owner, or
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of retail store staff that's attending as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me because, there are actually a lot of things in common between test prep and games. And,
Mm.
when you're playing a game, like there's a lot of similar elements. When you're playing a game, you're getting better and better at it. You're
Yes,
working towards a
yes,
particular outcome,
yeah.
but there's not a lot of pressure in a game, which is why playing a game is fun and
It's
taking a
more
test is
fun.
not
Yes,
as fun.
yes,
And
yes.
so I would actually really enjoy that course because I would like to think more about, what makes a game a game.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if I'm thinking about what makes a game and all of the elements of that, then I can infuse more of those elements
Yes,
into the game of
yes,
test prep.
yes. And
Yeah.
I think as part of the course, you also talk about through the act of play, you also release different happy hormones
Mm-hmm.
like dopamines,
Yes.
oxytocin, and serotonin, and endorphin. So that's
Mm-hmm.
four.
Mm-hmm.
So those DOSE, and those are the four happy
Mm-hmm.
chemicals the kids can, and not just kids, the adult have
Of
those too.
course.
So
Yeah.
those really help them to study even better when you are
Mhm.
happy instead of like being
Exactly.
all stressed out and going to cry and you just couldn't remember anything when you are in that kind of mental stage. So making it fun is definitely a key, and that's what the course is talking about. Like, what is the power of play? Pretty much, that's the main
Yes.
theme. So, yeah.
Yeah. I look forward to that as well.
Yeah, so as well, wrapping up today's interview, and thank you so much for sharing all the story. One question I ask every single guest on the podcast is, if you had to share just one piece of advice with someone that's getting started in the toy industry, what would that be?
Well, I'm tempted. I've got two that spring to mind. I probably would say networking. I would say just start networking. I think I've listened to loads of podcasts about people in the toy industry, and I think most people will say the toy industry is a very friendly space, and a lot of us are entrepreneurs, so we're learning as we go. And so just leaning into the power of our networks is
True.
it's essential because it helps us so much, but it's also essential from sort of a morale perspective because it's just so good to feel like you have, support and people doing similar things. And so I think without a network as a solo entrepreneur, I think I would still be in the idea phase.
Yeah. And jumping on that, are you part of Women in Toy?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Yeah, I
they
have
also have a
attended.
wonderful network, and I interviewed the chairwoman a couple weeks ago on my podcast too, from
Oh,
Women in
nice.
Toys. So yeah,
I'll,
that will be
I'll
a good episode to re-listen to, I guess, once we
have you.
publish it.
Has it been
So,
published?
not yet.
Okay.
We just
All right. I'll
recorded,
look
so
out
it's
for it.
not published yet. So, but that's another good example of networking because that's what Women in Toys do. My sister is part of that organization. I think I talked to the chairwoman. I want to apply to be a mentor for
Mm-hmm.
the organization as well. Just do some
Yes.
free consulting and just sharing some of my experience as well in the toy industry. Since I was doing this since 2016 actually, so 8 years
Mm-hmm.
now. So I've been quite a bit of up and downs
Experience.
and different experiences, obviously.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Pia, for being on the podcast. Where can people find you?
Thank you, Jason. This has been so much fun. Thank you for having me. So I am on LinkedIn. That's my favorite place to be. My name is Kelly Clement, Clement. You can look for me by Kelly Clement Watermelon Math. That's probably the easiest way to find me.
Okay.
My website and my company is called Mind Mine Education. So I'm at www.mindmineeducation.com. And I'm also on Instagram at the same handle, Mind Mine Education. So those are the places to find me.
Okay, I will make sure we include that in the show note. And for the listener that's listening, you can also watch the video version of today's interview on our YouTube channel at Toy Launch. And thank you so much for sharing your experience and sharing your story. And I love the thing you're doing for the kids and try to make the boring test prep more fun, which is a hard task. So yeah, so thank you so much again.
Thank you, Jason. Have a great day.